Dave and Julian, we're talking about innovation and transformation. You're both are leading the charges of some pretty big corporations that are traditionally been bending iron and selling iron. Why are you guys on stage right now? Dave, you want to start?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So we at Brunswick, we're in a couple of businesses. We're in the marine business, and we're in the fitness business. And both of those businesses have huge participation. Fitness is the one you know most about, but there are about 40% of the entire US population participates in boating in some way or another. So we have translated expectations in both of our markets for marine and for fitness. You know, people expect a certain level of technology, they expect a certain level of intuitive design, they expect connectivity, and you know, we need to bring that kind of thing to our businesses as well.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll dive into a little bit more about what you guys are doing there. Julian, first, I think you need to answer the most important question. As you're kind of going through why you're here, how in the hell did you get that corn plant?
I was driving on I-88 last night in the middle of the rain. I pulled over and yanked a plant out of a cornfield. I did know the farmer, and I had asked for permission out of that farm. Now, it was raining, and so I had to put the corn plant in the trunk of my car, so I felt like a kind of a B-class hitman trying to throw something in my trunk in the middle of the evening. But here it is. So the reason I brought the plant, though, is the theme of the conference being human. For us at John Deere, it's really kind of about being corn or whatever other crop we're trying to support our customers. And it kind of dawned on me after working at Deere for a while that it's you think like, am I building tractors, or am I building telematic boxes for the tractors? And actually, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is help the farmer grow this as best as possible. So ultimately, it really is every decision we make, whether we're creating a mobile app or whether we're painting the tractor a different color or doing anything else to our vehicles or solutions, is does it help this plant grow better? Can we put each seed in the ground exactly where the farmer wants it placed, at the right depth, on the right date, under the right weather conditions, in the right soil? And ultimately, if we can help the farmer achieve that, the farmer's happy, and the plant grows to be as healthy as possible. This one, unfortunately, spent an evening in the trunk of my car, so she's a little sad right now.
Thanks. So you say something that's interesting. Couldn't you keep helping the farmer doing that by just continuing to make the machinery at the level that you guys have for a number of years? Why starting the transformation that you guys have been under, just why not just keep doing what you've been doing for 100 years?
Yeah. So I mean, farming is a game of decisions, and decisions are made in real time, all throughout the farming season, and it's a time-sensitive endeavor. So really what digital has done for John Deere, in addition to being a vehicle and a mechanism by which data is transferred, it's essentially helped farmers make better real-time decisions about how to make those plants grow better, right? So everything from they need to get their tractor and their planter set up, and they pull a mobile app and they basically tweak and tune the planter in real time. Everything from combining weather data with what they did last year to help them give them insights about what they should be doing this year. Digital has really transformed the job of farming in that way, and being able to make real-time decisions.
That's great. And Dave, kind of want to go back to what you kind of said in your intro about 40% of the population touches boating. Why go under a digital transformation? Why launch Nauticon? Why start to put such an emphasis on innovation around this area?
Well, I think we're on the same journey that a lot of people in the audience are on, I think, and that is the journey from being a hardware-focused company, making better and better physical products all the time, to trying to offer more of a complete solution to people, more of a compelling experience. If you think, boating is not a very accessible pastime. And what we're really doing, we're not just competing with other boat companies and other fitness companies, we're competing for people's recreational time. So we have to make what we offer at least as compelling and hopefully more compelling than what everybody else offers. And part of that is digital. Part of it is the ease of being able to monitor your boat, or being able to order things to be brought to your boat, or be able to tell a maintenance tech what's wrong with your boat and have them arrive with the right parts. So keeping people, in the end, boating is really about having fun on the water for as much of the time as possible. And what we want to do is make sure that the people get that kind of fun time on the water by taking the access and the hassles away. And we can only do so much of that with a better physical product. Really, we need digital for accessibility, for connectivity, to provide services, and even to provide social engagement around the boating scene between boaters and other boaters in the area.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that but both we're talking about we can't continue to innovate on the actual products that we've been building for years, but taking this whole scene of this ecosystem around a farmer or a boater and really adding value for what they're expecting, right? Who are you scared about though? Like in that area, is it your traditional competitors, or who's really making the noise that you're trying to stay ahead of?
We're always concerned about our traditional competitors, but I think we're all in the same situation here. We're constantly worried about a different business model or some kind of disruptive force that will change the nature of our businesses. And if you're an incumbent, you should be paranoid about that, because it is happening everywhere. It's not a secret that the top 5 market cap companies now are digital companies. That is happening to everybody's business. The worst thing you can do is turn away from that and think that your business is the one business that is not going to be affected. It will be. Face up to it and try and be more innovative and thoughtful than your immediate competitors, but also think about putting yourself in the shoes of a potential disruptor. And we have a lot of emphasis in our company on design thinking. We're trying to get people thinking much more broadly about solutions, not only that we might put together, but that our competitors or new entrants might put together to disrupt our business. And so that is, in my role, I think in Julian's role, more and more of what we think about is not what the guy immediately across the street's going to do. It's what somebody that we don't even know about could do to our business. Yeah,
and it's really, I think, Julian, you and I have talked about with Deere, it's like you guys are the market leader, and it's renowned for innovation, and people years ago could have said, well, we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We're totally fine. Why do we have to, how did you get people on board? You had some really flagship projects and really kind of led a charge on a lot of things. How did that work within Deere to say, let's move forward? Did you have to put a big business case together to get kind of the first foray into those things? What did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in a traditional company, old company, 175 plus years old, there is always the desire for a business case. But I mean, if you look at our digital journey, 5 years ago, we didn't have one single mobile app, and today we have 20 plus serving all kinds of different markets, everything from the mower out there to your traditional farmer and construction. And some of that, I think, the DNA of the company is innovation. At some point, you do have to take that leap of faith, right? Now, there's still two things that keep me up at night when it comes to
besides making sure you get the right corn stock for
that's number 3. I mean, one of them is the fact that at a personal level, I always worry almost every night about becoming irrelevant, and this is just me, Julian. Am I becoming irrelevant? Have I not consumed the right information and sufficient information to be relevant in today's tech world, right? And that transfers over to the people I work with, right? So I look around and I say, is the workforce in my environment, are they also becoming irrelevant, and are they absorbing the right skills, right? So that's just something that should keep us all up at night individually. Are we becoming irrelevant, right? The second thing that keeps me up at night is my wife has the Jimmy leg, and so it's just, it's really annoying, and it usually kicks in around 9:30 p.m.
Well, thanks for that. The interesting thing is, like, we're talking about non-traditional competitors. We're talking about taking chances. Can't you just kind of get into a habit of reacting? I mean, we see a lot in the digital startup space of, well, okay, this company had this huge valuation for like 6 months, and now they're out. Maybe you were chasing them. How do you've got people on board with your strategy from digital. How do you keep from reacting and following down a path of doing the wrong thing, essentially?
Well, I think the right strategy is probably not to be focused on one particular track. I think having a portfolio of options available to you is the way that most people go right now. So, for example, we have a partnership with a Chicago-based incubator called TechNexus. And the purpose of that is, for one thing, we're not, as a large company, we're not always great at engaging with startups and early-stage companies. But the other purpose is to develop a portfolio of investments in early-stage companies that allow us optionality. I mean, you have to pick 1, 2, 3 paths to go down, but I would not pick one. I would recognize that these things are too uncertain, and you need, as a company, to decide on a limited number of options, but with a broader set of optionality beyond that you think is going to take you directionally in the right, along the right lane. So, I think from my perspective, not being reactive, but also not being completely deterministic about the path you want to follow is probably the right thing to do at the moment.
I like that, Julian. Like, what if, kind of similar in the strategies that you guys are going down? What are some examples of different paths that you're looking at? How do you prioritize that from where you start to make bets and figure out what's the right thing to do and what path to prioritize your time?
It's a challenge, and I think Dave hit it right on the head. It's about having a strategy and having a diversified strategy. We do chase a lot of headlines, right? So I would say not a week goes by when I don't get email forwarded to me about a new drone company that put a new camera on the drone and is taking pictures, and what are we going to do about this? Is this going to disrupt us? And I mean, there are just endless headlines coming from all over the place that you can end up over chasing, right? So if you do have a strategy, if you have a portfolio of being flexible, I think the other thing, the key thing too there is having the flexibility to either have a partner or partners that allow you to have that flexible portfolio of technology, right? So I go back to our early days of mobile. We found a partner like Solstice to help us evolve our mobile capabilities and kind of get there. Over the years, we've developed internally our own mobile capabilities, so now we feel like that's a mature capability, right? But a big company, from an HR standpoint, it's hard to all of a sudden turn on a switch and hire 150 mobile developers on day one. So you've got to have some mechanisms to add the right capabilities at the right time and feel like you're flexible in being able to do that.
Yeah. So Dave, can you touch on how from a Brunswick standpoint, the talent thing is a big thing, right? And building that out. How are you guys approaching that, from recognizing that you're going down this path of digital, and what are some things that you're organizationally looking at to attract that talent and keep things moving along so that you can build up that capability?
Well, we're attracting it in very traditional ways. Hiring the right new talent, but we're supplementing, I think, in a smart way. So we recently opened a innovation center down at the University of Illinois in Champaign. We call it the iJet Lab, and we've hired in 20 students into there, all with disciplines that we lack, all with contemporary disciplines, mostly engineering and technology disciplines, but also with some business students as well, but supplementing the knowledge base that we have internally. We don't necessarily have, nor could we find, a continuous role for people in a lot of things, like voice control and some elements of MLAI, but we can supplement our internal knowledge base and gradually migrate that in. So University of Illinois, in this case, our lab down there acts as an incubator for projects, supplements our knowledge, and provides a stream of new potential hires. And then, of course, for scaling, which is somewhere where a lot of us often fall down, it isn't the innovation, it's the scaling. Working with teams like yours at Solstice is very, very helpful. And we have started to put together some kind of internal startup teams like the Nauticon team that are freed from a lot of bureaucracy that we find inside the larger organization. Have that energy, located downtown in Chicago, have more access to talent, more access to collaboration, and they can be supplemented by the other resources from Solstice or our iJet lab or even the TechNexus startup. Yeah. So I think forming that ecosystem of partnerships to supplement your internal resources sensibly is that's the approach that we've used anyway.
How do you get approval to go down that path? I mean, I just can imagine organizationally that's hey, we're gonna create this startup. We don't want them to be any part of anything that's traditionally we've ever done. So, and by the way, the culture that we have is not going to be conducive to what we're trying to do with launching this. How do you do that?
Here is the great news at the moment. If you guys are in public companies, or even if you're in larger private companies, the great news at the moment is the board of directors is your best friend. Because if anybody is more worried than you are about being disrupted or new technologies, it is your board of directors. So it used to be that the board of directors was remote and removed and non-supportive of innovation and those kind of things. That situation is transformed. You have your biggest lobbying group right at the top of the business. And so that is enormously helpful. Now, you have to get the whole business to buy in, and that is a process that you can use a lot of tools to do. Engaging people throughout the business is really important, but the best news is they are more concerned about your future than anybody else. And they're the people who can, really use a lot of leverage on your behalf.
So, Julian, how did JD Tick and the research center down in Champaign, probably real close to where Dave's got his center. How did all that come about, and how did you get buy-in to do that?
Yeah, I mean, spot on, right? So board of directors right now and all executives want to have a feeling that innovation is happening. Now, I'm going to just talk about getting the rest of the business on board. As someone who's a little bit in the trenches of trying to drive an innovation group and an innovation agenda, I used to have a saying that if you're in research and development and you're not helping the business solve their fires of today, then you're viewed as useless. If you're not working on tomorrow's problems, then you're viewed as irrelevant, right? Now, that's a very pessimistic type of approach. So if I flip that around, right, the way I've typically addressed this is I roughly allocate about half of my portfolio on problems that the business is asking for today. Now, here's the key. I don't go and solve their fires, right? The conversation I have with the business is show me what you want to do next year or in 2 years and help me accelerate it. Don't show me what you didn't want to do this year that fell below the line. Clearly, that fell below the line for the reason. Show me what you want to do next year, and I'm going to allocate some resources to help accelerate that. That gets that by them. That gets them feeling like, okay, they're not useless, right? The other half of the resources are spent on that, those moonshots or whatever terminology or whatever process you want to call them. No one's necessarily asking them for, but you just know deep in your heart as an R&D person that this could help the business or could help your customers, and you just basically invest some of your portfolio resources into those into those types of projects. So again, we keep kind of that balance of the two, and I think that helps an organization, a large organization, feel like you're engaged with the business, but it also doesn't lose sight of the fact that sometimes you've got to do stuff that no one is asking for.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you mentioned something going to, and there's a fire that they couldn't, that they didn't get put out this year and just went by the wayside. Like, what happens if that fire was something that, could have been the next thing? Like, how are you revisiting that, or how do you change the organization to say we need to revisit these things and execute on that? Dave, do you have any examples or anything that you guys have done?
I think, if you think about new organizations and new business models, I think there are capabilities that you need to have. The capability to sense the environment. That's the external environment and the internal environment. There's a lot of stuff in there. Consumer insight, design thinking, but also, learning your lessons deeply. Let's sense the environment. Let's adapt to the environment, and that means, being agile and developing small focused teams, and then, eventually transforming the business. So, there's a process that a new organization needs to go to make it responsive, to make it sense the environment, to make it responsive, and to make it adapt, so that we constantly learn those lessons in a much faster, more dynamic way than we might have done in the past. So I think you're exactly right. Ignoring the big fires is absolutely not the thing to do, and developing a sense and response kind of organization is really helpful.
Great. I think just real quick, we're getting wrapped up here. One piece of advice when we think about innovation, humanity, and the theme from Forward that you could give anyone that's kind of going down the path of transformation in 15 seconds.
So let me see a quick raise of hands. You wake up this morning, are you afraid of losing your job? Okay, so I think that's the key to innovation, is you have to wake up every morning and not be afraid of losing your job, right? And I've practiced something recently that I call privilege risk. The idea of privilege risk is that if I do lose my job, I think I'll be okay, right? I may not get a job as good as the one I have right now, but it's probably gonna be about 60 or 70% as good, right? And if you're actually able to embrace that idea of privilege risk, and you're not afraid to lose your job, you'll take the necessary risks to be successful in innovation.
Dave?
If I could say the words consumer insight for 15 seconds, then I would. Live with your customers, understand their pain points, understand their entire journey. Don't get overly focused on one part of their journey. Understand that it's a process. The way they engage with you is really important. So walk in your customer's shoes as much as you possibly can every single day.
Great. With that, I want to thank Dave and Julian for your time.
And the corn plant.
And the corn plant for making an appearance. You guys can check out the Nauticon booth and Mower Plus. And thanks again.